Hello, and welcome to Horror Movies and Shit. I'm your host, Jim, and with me, as always, is
Jim's unpaid psychiatrist, Mark.
amateur psychiatrist, not unpaid. Mark, why did you call us here today?
Jim, this is your doing.
It is. You're right.
Why don't you let our audience know our special guest?
We have a special guest today. With us today from Strange Films is August Aguilar. Hi, August.
Hello. Hi. Thank you
How
guys
are
so
you?
much for having me on. I appreciate it. I'm doing very well. Thank you.
So, August, Mark's going to run the interview because he tends to do a lot better research than I do, but I do have some notes.
Sure. Okay, no problem. Happy to be here.
So, August, I hear you're into movies. No, I'm only kidding.
What? Really?
Yeah. So thanks very much for joining us. We're super into up and coming filmmakers, established filmmakers, anybody, authors, anybody in the horror world that we'd love to interview, promote, do anything we can to get the word out there. Plus, have a fun little discussion.
That's
Sure,
right. Our three fans absolutely love this shit.
Both our fans will adore you.
Well, thank you so much to all four of you guys and whatnot. No, but seriously, it helps a lot. It means a lot, especially to creators and filmmakers like myself who have people like you who are in our corner supporting us and sharing our work, promoting, and wanting to talk to us and kind of be able to express some of those nitty-gritty details about what we do and everything. So it means a lot what you guys are doing, and so I'm very thankful and appreciative of it.
It's really amazing, like, if you go back before the era of social media, the grassroots stuff is harder to come across and things like that, but now it's just open to everyone, which is fantastic.
Yes, we're in probably the most defining or exciting time, I should say, of kind of as far as being like a creative. I mean, because you don't have to wait for some sort of like Hollywood like news reporter to get a hold of your stuff. You don't have to wait for Hollywood to even necessarily pick you up, or you don't have to wait for your local paper to cover you or something like that. It's all about social media. It's about podcasting and the network you can provide online and everything, and the community you create online, and that's very exciting as far as the opportunity itself goes. So as long as you're consistent with content and expressing yourself truly and communicating with the people who do support you, that can go a long way, and that's really cool.
And I think there's been a certain amount of freedom given, with the likes of YouTube, with the likes of like Amazon, where people can publish their own books, etc. So I think there's more avenues out there, which is great. But sometimes it's like there's so much content, it gets a little overwhelming. So
yeah, there is like, it almost feels like there's too much now in a sense, but from I hear a lot of, or I listen to a lot of different like people in the industry, whether they're filmmakers or comedians or podcasters or whoever, and the thing is, like, there's always going to be enough room at the table. It's just there's always going to be enough like to go around for everybody who's creating content. It's just a matter of how you can keep that audience retention, and how you engage with the audience and what kind of content and value you're bringing to them. And not everyone's going to have exactly the right fit for it, but there's also going to be some people who stand out, and it's just ever growing, man. So it's really cool to be in this time and kind of plant your seed and kind of see how it grows.
It's kind of like I always think, because I've got like ADHD whenever I'm trying to figure out what to watch sometimes. So, I'll go through all my streaming sites. I don't feel like that. I don't feel like that. Mm-hmm. It's like total first world problem. I've got too much content to go through.
Yeah.
Too much content and too little attention span.
Well, that's my life in a nutshell.
So, August, you made a big announcement over on your podcast this week. Would you want to share that for anybody who has not listened yet?
Sure. So I guess my big announcement, which I've been pretty much pushing on my socials as well, is that I made the decision to leave my corporate job and actually go for all these creative endeavors, filmmaking, podcasting, YouTube, content creation in general, and kind of go for that full time, and hopefully build a business for myself and work for myself in the long run. And that was a big, big decision. I announced on my podcast, and started posting reels about it on socials. And it's been a very interesting week so far, because I still have one more week left of my job after this, and but I've gotten a lot of. I honestly, I'd say 90 to 100%, or 80 to 90%. I've gotten great support and congratulations and stuff about that decision, and very excited for me. Especially people who know Strange Films and know myself, like very, very supportive behind me. And then you get that other small percentage of people, even close friends or family, who have been like, really unapproving and really concerned, and having really hard, difficult conversations, as who's trying to make me feel like I'm making the biggest mistake in my life, which I'm trying to tell people, like, this is my life and something I want to do, the journey I feel like I need to take at this time. And if it's if it ends up not working out, like that's my journey to figure out, not theirs. So it's but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at this point. So
That's fantastic.
So
Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, that's an amazing accomplishment, and it's got to be a scary leap to take.
Oh yeah, I mean, I wouldn't lie and say like, oh yeah, no, everything's gonna be fine. Like, I mean, it because there's like I have a great motivation and excitement behind everything, but yeah, I'm nervous. Like I still have to figure out things and make sure I'm getting enough significant like income to take care of myself and all these other just little life things, all the life check marks that you need to take care of in your life. But there's like that bigger calling that I have to kind of reach out and go for, that I've always felt. I mean, the reason why I started this journey to begin with is because I felt it back, almost 7 years ago, and I quit my news position to go for it. And it's just kind of like, it was this overwhelming sensation, again, to go for it now. And because I kind of felt myself losing motivation, losing some of that spark in me. And it was just kind of like, man, like I need to put all cards on the table and just go for this as hard as I possibly can, especially now that I've learned so much over the years. And I mean, but I wouldn't say that like I know exactly what I'm doing. Like, I'm definitely having to figure things out. I have to hustle really hard. It's not going to be just staying up late, sleeping in, playing video games all day. It's going to be a work. It's just going to be my own terms and my own kind of work.
And it is funny that you do see, especially with creative endeavors, like what you're embarking on, a lot of people do think it's going to be a lot of sleeping in and playing video games until it just happens. They don't realize that there's 10 to 15 years of really hard work ahead to make that big break happen.
Yeah. I think that's what people are giving me like a bad rep. I mean, the people who have not been so supportive, I think they're just thinking like, oh, I'm going to make another film and everything's going to be all right. Like I'm going to go Hollywood or something like that. And that's not reality. The reality is, instead of getting up at 6 a.m. and working 8 hours for the day, 5 days out of the week, and spending 50% of my time to someone else and something else that I'm miserable in, I'd rather get up at 5 or 6 a.m., work that 8 hours for myself and do the things I need to do and hustle the way I need to do. And constantly progress what I'm actually working on and what makes me happy. And I can stay up late and do that thing. I mean, I can balance it's like different pockets of time during the day, because you have all the time in the day to dedicate to, whether it's family or work or whatever, but it's at my pace and not so structured and, constrained by this company or a corporate job that I feel like I have to live by. So, it's going to be a lot of work. I mean, I'm not like underestimating that at all. I just need people to understand, like, I'm ready for that, and I'm excited for that.
Really, it's like starting any business by yourself, right? So, people look at that and say, well, you don't have to work for the man anymore. But what they don't realize is you have to put in a lot more work. But the positive side about that is it's work that you want to do, right? That you have a passion in. So that, if you enjoy what you're doing, it's not work, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, and I'm in this generation, I'm in like this middle part of my generation where, I'm 30 years old. So I've been conditioned pretty much my whole life to like, go to school, go to college, get a job, get, married and then retire at 65, and like all these things, like like that's like people older, my our parents and our grandparents and stuff like that. Everyone is thinks like that's the way you have to do it. But what for me, it's like for me and people that are younger than me, a lot of us are thinking, I don't think that's how it has to be. Like I don't think that's how it has to. Like you don't have to be miserable working. You don't have to be working 20 years and just absolutely miserable and just getting by and faking a smile and just saying like, oh well, and I had to have stability and all this security and all this stuff. But like I think you can find a way to bring yourself happiness and do things that you actually like to do and want to do and not feel like work, even though you are working, maybe even 10 times harder than what you would do at your corporate job. So I'm just trying to change that narrative just a little bit and just kind of let people understand like this is okay what I'm trying to do. Being an entrepreneur like is a lot more common now than it was 20 years ago. Um,
That's true.
so it's just there's so many people my age, even younger, who are doing this in their own ways and being very successful at it. And I just kind of look at that and say, why can't I be that kind of guy? So I'm just taking it one day at a time. I'm very excited, and yeah, it's gonna be a really interesting journey.
Jim, when will this podcast be profitable enough that we could quit our jobs?
Well, we'd have to monetize it first and start recording ads. Are you ready to do that legwork, Mark?
I am perfectly fine.
Yeah.
We'd have to have more than 4 listeners first.
Including your mom.
Yeah, including my mom.
So, August, obviously you've got a passion for movie making. So, what are some of the early movies that inspired you?
That's always a tough question because I really didn't like. I always knew I wanted to tell stories when I was younger. I was always like a writer first, and excuse me. Whenever I was like in high school, I started like really dabbling with like the movies, like movie film, like trying to edit and shoot and stuff like that. And then college is really where I found my calling. But I'll say like I answered this question on Instagram just like last week, and I think the two biggest movies that really kind of excited me the most when I was just like a kid was Wizard of Oz and E.T. And I think
Mhm.
just because the Wizard of Oz, obviously for me, is like it's in my top 5 movies of all time. And I think it's just more because that movie was such ahead of its time. I feel like where it's you got this black and white like sepia look and then it goes to like full blown color and like this amazing adaptation from the story where it's just so colorful and all these characters and this wild story going on and whatnot. I just thought that was really fascinating. I always like really really loved like the world I was seeing on screen. I always thought that'd be cool to just like make something like that. And ET I think is just kind of the same. Like I mean it's like it's sci-fi but it's also kind of got like a big heart in there, like you're feeling things and you've got really great characters and you've got ET who's just like this larger than life figure. And so I think those two movies really resonate with me. But growing up after that, especially as I got into horror, I really started really diving into like the 80s slasher films, and those have kind of been my biggest inspiration kind of moving forward with strange films. So Michael Myers and Halloween is like my all-time favorite like horror movie, and John Carpenter's like biggest inspiration I feel like going behind a lot of my work. So just kind of I'd say I'm a big mixed bag, but definitely like 80s movies in general and 80s slashers and horror, and then like classics like E.T. and Wizard of Oz and stuff like that.
Carpenter's my favorite director. He just like his late 70s through to early 90s stuff was just untouchable, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Jim, do you have a question?
No, I was just gonna say, Mark, he likes slashers like you like slashers.
So, that's a good little segue. So, Jim, I believe you watched August's movie on YouTube, He Comes to Kill.
I
Uh,
did.
so, obviously, very heavily inspired by Halloween.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So, do you want to tell us a little bit about how that came together and just any general thoughts and anything around that, the making of it, and how it's been going since it was released and everything else?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a long winded answer, but we'll buckle in and go for it and
Oh,
stop me if you have any questions.
you don't have to worry about time. We generally, ramble a lot. so
Okay,
it's okay.
cool. Sure. So I'll back up from the beginning of like I'd say so last year 2022. So beginning of like 2022, I was like in the very early stages of trying to prepare like my next film. And I was at the time I was partnering up with a guy, uh, David Brandon, who he runs CinemaScare Studios, and he just like me and him were like just talking ideas at this point, and it kind of came down to this idea of like want to make like a slasher film and whatnot. But it took me a long time to even get like a first draft. We were talking all these different ideas and everything about how it would start, what was even the premise and what was going on. But it was kind of probably like between like April and June of 2022, I finally sat down enough to like write out a first draft. And that first draft of He Comes to Kill was like I can't remember. It was called something way else. But and it was just really about like this guy who just kind of runs through town and starts killing people essentially, and it was going to be a short film. I just wanted it to be like 20, 30 minutes long. And what happened with that was as I was writing it and I kind of got like a 25, 30 page script, a couple drafts done, I just looked at it and it was like I wasn't really satisfied with it. I wasn't even like really fully into it. I just like knew something was like off or wrong or something about it. But I was happy I just had something written out. So kind of finally I came up with the title He Comes to Kill. I came up with the character name Stanley Elk as the slasher. And I had this draft that was like kind of like confident enough to go ahead and ask for casting, but like in my mind, I was also like, I just don't know if this is really like it. So I went ahead and put the casting call out, and I announced the film. And this was probably like I guess like July now, and this whole project, I mean, it was crazy how when I announced it. Usually, when I announce something on Strange Films, we get a lot of attention, like looking people who are wanting to be a part of the movie, cast, crew, whatever. But this, for whatever reason, this one just like blew up even more. And I had like over 100 different submissions with actors locally and regionally, some even like way out of state and whatnot, like in the up north in like New York or Philly or L.A. So I was having to like I was like overwhelmed. I was like, oh my god, because like it was just like I had to go through all those messages through Messenger and email and everything comments. So, anyways, I start casting the project and I'm moving along. But what happens with and this is something I've learned as I've been doing this for a while, as I've cast people and talked to them on the phone or watched their auditions or something, I kind of see like something about them that makes me like, oh, that's what that character is really about, Like, oh, that character, I want to write that character more prone to their personality now. Like now I couldn't see the character in the beginning, but now I do. So I started rewriting the characters a little bit, but sometimes those rewrites kind of have to change the setting of the story and also practicality of the locations. I kind of had to start rewriting some of the locations. So I ended up casting this whole film from every character, and then I rewrote the whole film.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, and I rewrote the whole film. Like, I mean, I had like White Lavender Jones. He's a big part of the movie. Um, he's based
Great
out.
great guy, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, he's amazing.
He was
Uh,
fantastic. I would like to see a movie with him as a protagonist.
Yeah.
we've got some stuff that we're hopefully bringing him back on some projects. So,
I I feel he would make like a great kind of Loomis type character.
oh yeah, that's a good
Where,
idea.
where,
Yeah.
um, even more so, he reminded me of the bounty hunter in Jason Goes to Hell.
Really?
Oh, okay. Okay.
See,
Yeah,
and for
he's
me,
kind of like quirky, just very, kind of funny and quirky and charismatic on screen.
see, I went more the way of the priest from Dead Alive.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Got some
think
of
Bruce.
I got those vibes heavy, and I thought that would be a great type of role.
Well, I think, and Bruce usually listens to all these podcasts, so if he's listening now, I think one thing that Bruce is really great at is he will dive into any kind of lane that you guide him, direct him into, and he's just really, really good at natural chemistry, natural like facial expressions and really gives it his all on
Yeah.
all these things. But I'm very excited to work with him again in the future. Definitely have been talking with him about numerous different projects coming up. But the reason originally that White Lavender Jones scene, tying back into this, is that whole house party scene was actually supposed to be a punk rock band in a garage just practicing, and it was supposed to be just like four guys and a band just like jamming out, and Stanley Elk ends up coming up, and killing the guys there.
Oh.
And one of the lead actresses was actually supposed to be one of the girlfriends of the lead singer, and she like she's dating like the lead singer, and she comes in, and it's like some of the guys go away and whatnot, but Stanley Elk ends up like going there out on his way to the barn. That so it was supposed to be like a completely different dynamic. But White Lavender Jones hit me up, and at this time I had him on my live show, so we've been friends now, and he hit me up and was like, I want to be. Is there any way I can be in this movie? And I'm like, well, I'm shooting in Knoxville, Tennessee. I can't fly out. It's very, limited budget. I got to do it on these dates. But if you want to come out here, you can. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. He said, I'll be there. So I was like, all right. So I scrapped that whole scene. I rewrote the whole scene based off of White Lavender Jones. So I knew it was going to be White Lavender Jones. I studied his music. I studied his personality. Me and him talked quite a bit. And I just was like, I'm going to make a house party, like Halloween, like 80s kind of, or disco kind of theme. And, we're going to have him perform. So it'll be kind of like a music video, but at the same time, it cuts to like the horror, like, in the scene.
Yep.
So that's kind of how that evolved. So like all these scenes were changing as I was casting characters, and I had to change locations and all these stuff. But then I ran into the problem of I cast I think I know at least two main characters in the film that was very integral to the story, and one dropped out like right after he got cast,
Oh.
and right after I announced it publicly. Because what I like to do is I like to promote everyone who's being a part of the project. I give them
Right.
their own social posts, I promote it, all the stuff to hype everything up. And I made this whole announcement. I talked to him like 7 times and everything, and then he bailed, and he said that this is just funny to me, but he said that God told him he couldn't do it or something like that. So
Oh.
yeah, it was. He said he usually prays before he gets his roles, and he didn't pray for this one or something. So it was just a mess. Uh, but either way, whatever he wants to do, it just made me mad that he made me waste my time.
Yeah,
So
but that'll make a great trivia question. When you do blow up.
thanks. Yeah, we'll come back to this and make that happen.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I had to cast that. I had to recast that, and then like another main character, he actually shot the first scene of the movie the first day of shooting. Told me he was good for the next two shoots, which was 2 weeks apart. So he had plenty of time, and he already booked them for me. And then he bailed on both of those the day of, or a few days before on one of them, and the day of on the last one. So I had to like quickly. I had to change everything. I had to rewrite the scene, change a character here, add another character there. So that's kind of how all this like behind the scenes stuff was happening. And it was like it was almost like one thing after another. Like it was almost like forcing or challenging me not to make this movie.
Right.
And I just finally no matter what anything threw at me, I fixed it. I subbed someone in, I rewrote this or that, and I just went ahead and I had to shoot it. So I shot it in 6 weeks, 6 weekends, every Saturday except for one weekend I shot a Saturday and Sunday.
Oh wow.
And I just booked all those locations. I got everyone together, had some people from Atlanta come down, had White Lavender come from Texas. The rest were pretty much all local. And, my dad played Stanley Elk. So I had him booked as the killer. And we just kind of did it. It was like all the days were probably anywhere from 4 to 8 hours of shooting. Maybe one was like 9. And then once we got it all done, I think I edited the whole thing in about a month and a half, and I had it released. We had a premiere in November at our local indie theater, Central Cinema, and we packed the thing out. I mean, it was like every seat was booked except for maybe one or two, and
Wow.
it was an amazing experience. And I mean, I'm super grateful for the whole thing. It's been a very, very exciting project now that I can kind of see it all come together, and I learned a lot from it, not only from the production side, and the writing and the casting and everything from that. But like I learned a lot from it as a story. I kind of didn't know what I was doing writing it, and these characters, I kind of just had a vague idea. But now going into like part two of the movie, which I want to do later on, I really understand kind of what I created, and I have a really great launching pad from there.
Yeah, you do. I have to say I enjoyed this film. So I heard about this film through Jordan, who is in the
Yeah,
film, who we had
yeah,
on our podcast a while back,
yeah. I listened to
talking.
that show, by the way. It was great.
No, thanks. Except for the first 20 minutes that I didn't record, right?
Yeah, right.
So he clued us into He Comes to Kill, and we started looking it up, and you got a lot of positive response from that film. So it definitely made me interested to see what was going to come. And I got to be honest, I'm very hard on films, as Mark will tell you.
That's an understatement.
You're right. And I have one criticism of this film, just
Oof.
one.
Sit down, August. If you're not
All
already.
right, let's do it.
So the scene where Stanley gets his mask in the bookstore,
Mm-hmm.
it drove me absolutely insane the way the clerk was reshelving books. Like it made me so angry.
Now, just to put this in perspective, August. So, what Jim will do is he will watch a movie, and if he doesn't like how somebody's hair is dyed, he'll knock a couple of stars off it.
I have never
Sure.
done that. Never done
Come on, now, Jim.
that. No,
uh,
but all kidding aside, I was really impressed. I enjoyed this a lot more than I expected to. I thought it was a lot of fun, and the scene where the maniacs were let out, or the criminals, or from the
yeah.
institution, the guy in the nylons with the buttons across his mouth. I've
Oh
never been
yeah.
so creeped out or turned on in my life. That was so weird.
So, August, welcome to my therapy sessions with Jim.
Yeah. I love that statement. Creeped out and turned on at the same time.
Yep.
The Gimp reminded me of Decker in Nightbreed.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, I have to give a shout out, man. Like, cause Zach, his last name is killing me right now. But he actually that little that's actually kind of like an Easter egg, cause Zach he plays Buttons. That's the character's name, Buttons,
Right.
and he's based out in like somewhere in Virginia. He drove 5 hours to get there that day. And same thing with the makeup artist Carla, who joined us for that day. They both rode together and drove 5 hours to hang out with us for that day. And Zach
Wow.
was the guy in that scene, the maniac scene. So there's a guy who's like, as the guard is walking, there's a guy who's kind of like holding a little doll, and he's like, laughing hysterically. And then
Yeah.
as the detective's running through the asylum, and he's the maniac that like he's trying to like stop him. He's like, haha, he's like
Oh
all
yeah.
crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's Zach. And
Okay.
but Zach has this alternative like character that he plays. He does he because he runs, or he's an actor in a like a haunted attraction every year,
Okay.
Mm.
and in Virginia, and he plays his character Buttons. But what he does also outside the haunted attractions, he does like live shows like every week or something like that. And he dresses up as Buttons on this live show, and
Huh.
he's like just like he's crazy. Like he'll dress up in this Buttons character, and he has like blood and crazy shit all over him, and he just talks to the Facebook Live, and he's just like saying crazy things and laughing, and he's answering questions and comments on the feed and everything. But what happened was it was like 2021. I was I was just up on Facebook one night, and I saw it, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" Because it's very jarring. It's
Yeah.
like a really wild looking character, and I
Yep.
was like, "What the hell is this?" So I messaged him, and I was like, "Dude, like you're what you're doing is incredible." I
Right.
was like, I'm a filmmaker. I love horror movies. I make horror movies. I want to get you in a movie. And he was like, oh yeah, that'd be amazing. Da da da. And I was like, no, I want to make a movie just about you. Like, I want to do a Buttons movie. Like, how do we make this happen? And that's me on a probably half. I was drunk or something, messaging him one night, and I didn't get to actually make the movie, but we
Damn
stay in
it.
contact, right?
Right.
So we talked. We would touch base every once in a while, but he reached out to me whenever I put the casting call out. He said, "Hey, I would love to be a part of this, even as an extra." Said, "Dude, I'm in Knoxville. I can't travel anywhere for this shoot. I know you're kind of like 5, 6 hours away." He said, "I'll come to you, no problem." I said, "Dude, if you come to me, I will make the best time. I will make like the most out of your time spent with us. I'll
Right.
have you as an extra. Bring that fucking buttons costume, like, 'cause I have to have it in a film."
Right.
So yeah, that's what we did. We had him made up first. We did all the stuff with him, outside the costume. But once we like were doing that one shot, I was like, dude, just yeah, 'cause he was so stoked. So we had the buttons, just a little cameo and Easter
Yep.
egg, and it made me like I was so happy to have that and have him a part of the film itself. And we had a great time. He definitely wants to work with us again anytime. But I'm now like after doing that, I still like even just recently, like a couple weeks ago, I was thinking about him again. I was like, I still gotta make that Buttons movie. So
I,
we might be doing that in the future. I just gotta work it out with him, but we might do that.
I am there for that.
Well,
that
yeah,
that could be a
well,
lot of fun.
so hopefully he listens and hears Jim's comments.
I have
Yeah.
no shame. Yeah.
What I'll say about that scene, I felt so bad for that reporter. Like,
Oh yeah.
Oh
years
yeah.
thinking, hey, go into the
Right. Well,
society.
what's yeah.
He's running around.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, what's funny about that is I used to work in the news, so
Oh,
I kind of like I have a lot of experience in that same exact kind of scenario, but not like obviously maniacs running around me, but like they would send me out to cover like really really uncomfortable situations, like really like I mean like house fires and with their families standing out front, or like
right.
car wrecks with like people hurt in the background or cops trying to tell me to get the hell out of there or something. So like I was like always sent to like these really uncomfortable situations. So I was like, I want a reporter here to be like, just to be in the midst of this chaos. But what I didn't account for, what I didn't account for was our actress Stephanie, who I love her. She's such a great supporter and friend, and she did a great job. But I think I actually made her uncomfortable because I was like, all right, like I'm a very unorthodox filmmaker. I don't really block or anything like that. I just say, all right, let's go. And whenever I pulled her aside to do this scene, she waited around like 3 or 4 hours before we did that scene.
Okay.
And when I pulled her aside, I was like, all right, we're gonna shoot your scene. And she's like, okay, so, well, are we gonna do this or this? I'm like, no, just read your, go off your lines, and I'm gonna have everyone around you just kind of doing some things. And she was like, okay. And like I think it was such like everything going on in the background is so unscripted. I told them all individually, scare her, like do something, like just like be weird in the background or scare her or do something. Like so, a lot of those like reactions, and I think some of the moments where she's like a little hesitant on saying things is like really like actually like happening in real life, and I actually had to cut that scene down quite a bit because I had a whole like God, I had a whole bit like giant amount of dialogue for that screen to really kind of bring backstory to kind of set the tone and all these things. But she was having a hard time like reciting all of that and especially with the pacing and stuff. So I was like,
Right.
just get to the point. Let's just say this, and do it in this kind of pace, and we'll be fine. No worries. So there's a couple things staged in that, but the others are just like really wild, like background stuff going on, and she I think a couple of those moments she's like really actually caught off guard, and she just kind of after it was all done, she's like, okay, well, is that all? I was like, yeah, that's all. She's like, okay, I gotta go. I was like, all right. So it's just funny, but
That's funny because one of the questions I was going to ask was about your directing style, and I can see you take a lot of cues from Bill Friedkin.
oh, yeah, I'm not familiar with that actually.
I am. That is the right director, right, Mark, for The Exorcist.
William Friedkin from
Yeah.
The Exorcist.
So
Oh,
he
okay.
he liked to scare his people. Like he would have gunshots go off randomly when he needed a startled
Oh, wow.
reaction from them, or the scene where at the end of the movie where the priest is giving the last rites after Father Damien falls down the stairs. He got tired of reshooting, so he walked up to the priest, who was a real priest, and said, "Do you trust me?" And he says, "Yes." And he just cold cocked him. So when the guy's shaking, it's because he's so angry, and the tremor
Whoa.
in his voice is because he's fuming. Uh,
Wow.
So
So you wouldn't get away with that stuff now.
not
No,
anymore.
definitely
No.
That's
not.
amazing.
And I'll let it say, and I'll say that like I'm not all the time like as chaotic as that, as far as like, oh, we'll just scare that actress or something like that, you know. But I do find very, very unique opportunities as we're shooting. So if I see something cool in the background, or if I see something interesting that we can utilize, or an actor does something that is like different from what I wrote, or they have something, you know, they're just something in the air is going on, then I'll lean into it and I say no, you know, screw the script, go with that. Or you see that over there, let's try to play with that. Or, you know, let's like, I'm very, very trying to be aware of my surroundings and the opportunities that my characters and cast and crew and everything around me presents me, because I just think that adds a little bit of a new and raw element to the film that will actually make the film better than what I originally wrote.
Oh, that's fair. And you can see a lot of the genuine reactions in the film, so that it does come through.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I thought the acting was very good
Yeah,
from all the leads.
I do.
Yeah,
So
we had a great cast all around. I mean, I'm super proud of everyone that was a part of the film, and it's such an ensemble cast. I quickly realized as I was making this film that this movie wasn't really so much about Stanley Elk, but it's about all the characters surrounding Stanley Elk,
very true.
and it just kind of, what I love watching this movie, rewatching it, is like there's so many great characters. Like Blake the guard, he's an amazing like creep. You know,
He
you've
is.
got
He is very creepy.
yeah, you've got and that's shout out Blake Best, man. Like, and I have his book as an Easter egg in the bookstore scene. So Jake, you know, Jake and Celeste, they're an actual couple. They're based out in Atlanta. They're filmmakers themselves. I you know, love working with them. And Jake just brought this really hysterical performance, you know, for that bookstore scene.
Right.
Jordan, obviously, he became a fan favorite. He brought the most intensity, I think, of the entire film with his acting, and the most, probably, the dedication. And you
Who
know,
was who was the cop? He was
yeah,
great. I
that's
thought.
Joe Casterline, and I was about to mention him as well, because he was actually supposed to be like, so the the Chief Sanders role, kind of going back to where I had to recast things and change things up, because things, you know, people were dropping out. Joe was actually supposed to play the bartender who Bing Fu, my buddy Bing, played in the film. So when I had to change things up, I said, "Well, Joe, do you want to play Chief Sanders?" He said, "Yes, absolutely." But Chief Sanders was supposed to have a very minor role, kind of like how the Deputy Hughes character is in the movie. He was supposed to
Okay.
kind of be the guy that Michael Mathis character kind of reports to, and they have like a lot of dialogue and stuff like that going on. And Chief Sanders is supposed to be kind of pretty much hanging out in the office area, all the scenes that he was in. But that didn't work out, so I had to change things up. So I ended up making Chief Sanders the guy who's hunting Stanley Elk down. So I had to change that right on the fly. We
Mm.
shot the last scene of the movie on our second or on our third shoot. So I had to change that ending, which ultimately had to make me change the rest of the movie in the beginning and the middle. So I brought Joe to the last, you know, for that day of shooting, and I wrote his character as the guy who's hunting Stanley Elk down and having the showdown. So that made me kind of reframe his character into like this cop that was like maybe like a washed up cop who came from a big city. He's got a coke problem.
Yeah,
He's all
that was great.
crazy. You know, he lives in a small town, but he's trying to prove to himself and to the small town that he can take down the boogeyman. You know, and it's just wild. You know, and he did such a freaking great job. He's so funny. I mean, it is hysterical watching him
Yep.
and working with him.
Yeah.
And I know it's seen on screen as well. So Joe, I love that guy to death. He's so great.
I do have to say I did love the deputy snark. That was
Oh
fun.
yeah, yeah. That little snarky last part of him going, or maybe it's the coke. That
Right.
was all improv too. Jeff did that on the fly. I was like, dude, we have to use that. I
Yeah,
was like, that's
that
so
was a
good.
great line.
Yeah, so good.
So I don't know, Mark. Do you have anything else you want to talk about with regards to He Comes to Kill?
No, I think we can see what August, your upcoming projects are, and
Well, first
well,
though, I want to talk about something else because I,
uh,
I I sort of stalked your YouTube channel a little bit today.
Oh, thank
So
you.
I
uh,
I started this Center City film series. I think there's what 10 videos in the playlist from what I saw,
Oh
which
yeah.
I only got to watch the first one, and that was pretty good. I can't wait to finish that little series because the woman I think is what you call her in the credits. Like
Yeah,
that's an interesting character. I really want
she
to
is.
get to know her better.
Okay, so you watched the original Center City, like um, not the spin-offs, just
Hmm.
the original
Yeah.
one.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, so we started that movie. That was my second film I've ever done, and I love that movie so much. It's like I kind of I kind of have it as like my Mona Lisa of my films because it's just like it was such a chaotic thing that we did at the time, but and I didn't really know what I was doing, but it came out so beautifully,
It
and I
did.
really love that movie. Especially because it's not like such a horror film. It's a kind of a crime. It's bizarre. It's film noir. It's
Yep.
jazz, and it shows a city beautifully. So that movie came out in 2017, and what happened was we got so excited about that movie and we had a lot of great like accomplishments from that movie. We got recognized from the Philadelphia Film Society. We got picked up in a lot of festivals. We won a couple festivals. Um, we kind of made our names for ourselves in Philly,
Yep.
and people were like wanting to be a part of it. So me and Frank, my dad in Philly, Frank Aguilar, we that's his baby as far as like writing and kind of producing, and I come up and shoot and direct it. But we just kind of had this crazy idea. It's like, why don't we make a spin-off film like Butch, because Butch ended up becoming like this fan favorite character.
Yeah,
So
I
why
can
don't we,
see that.
yeah, so we're like, why don't we just like do something else with Butch? Like do like a spin-off, like he's like celebrating the events of like Center City, and it's just gonna be like a party scene because at the time we were working with a band too who wanted to do a music video,
Mhm.
and so we're like, well, we can get the band's music in there and all this stuff, and we had this bar we could shoot at. So that's how Butch came about, and Butch is. Again, kind of like celebrating the events of Center City. So it takes place right after, and the driver's in there and everything. But what happened after that was like, well, why don't we make a spin-off film for every character? And we were like, we had to set up why this all happened anyways. So the woman came about, and the woman has her own movie called The Woman,
Right.
and it's the prequel to Center City. It sets up the events of Center City. So it's about her meeting the queen, who is like kind of the big boss of the town, and kind of why she's going out and doing these hits and all these things. And it's a pretty good film. I mean, as far as storyline goes, and it really sets up everything. But what happened was we couldn't get the original driver back from Center City,
Oh,
so we had to recast. But instead of recasting like the actual like driver, we ended up making like the brother of the driver who was also a driver, and that's like stated in the film too. So the
okay.
driver is another movie. So that's four films in the series. And the driver movie picks up like a few weeks after the events of Center City. So it's kind of like leading up to the finale, which is Center City 2, which is what I just shot. I finally finished the last scenes of shooting that movie back in December. Center City 2 is going to be released this year in 2023. But the kind of the antidote of that movie is we started shooting that movie in 2019.
Mhm.
So
Wow.
COVID's happened. We shot 2019, early 2020. COVID happened. Could not come back to shoot anymore. I had a son, so that delayed me from coming back to Philly. And then we had another filmmaker who helped us out shoot some scenes in 2021, or 20, maybe late 2020. But in 2021, when I came up to go shoot our film Raven, I ended up shooting some scenes again for it. And then I finally, on my last trip back, which was last December, I shot the last scenes for the movie. So
Okay.
this has been like a 4 year, 3 or 4 year process of making this movie. So the funny thing about this movie is it's no one has to take it serious because it's not going to be a serious film. It's going to be very campy. It's going to be like everyone's changed their appearance like 17 times throughout the whole thing, because we've done
Okay.
it over 3 years.
Right.
So it's going to be a really like jarring kind of visual experience on just certain elements, maybe character wise. But other than that, the story's there and everything. And but this is for our people that we began this journey with. So really, our Center City family, because people were so excited to be a part of this thing, anyways. And when we started shooting this, we couldn't just stop. We couldn't just throw it in the can.
Right.
We worked so hard to even get the scenes we shot in the begin with. So we wanted to make it a reality and still finish it. So we're gonna have like a big premiere for it in Philly. We're gonna celebrate with our Strange Films family and our Center City family, and it's going to be a really fun, goofy film. It's not going to be something I'm submitting to film festivals or anything like take it that serious. It's just going to be for our Strange Films family and to really enjoy. It'll be online, of course, people can watch it, but that's going to be probably my next feature because we shot so much footage. It'll probably be like an hour 10 long, something like
Oh,
that.
nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So the other, there's two more that I want to discuss. First
Go ahead.
is
Yeah.
Cindy's birthday party.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. That, I mean, I know it's very short. It's a short, obviously, but I know that you transitioned that into a comic book.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, did it continue the storyline or and like flesh it out more, or what? How did that go? How did that come about?
Yeah. Not necessarily. I mean, Cindy's birthday party was a really fun experience and film. Came out really well, especially because it was the first time I worked with kids too, so that
Hmm.
was really interesting. But as much as like people look at that film who are, especially people who are not really big fans of horror or it's something like that, they'll look at it and they're like, "What are you doing? Like this is the kids are getting hurt in this film. Like what is wrong with you?" Like I had my biggest accomplishment with that film was last year when I got a really nasty email sent to me, and it was a teacher named Cheryl. She sent me this long email, and she was like, I teach a third grade class, and it's the end of the semester. We don't really do much, so I was put on YouTube videos for my class while they eat cake or they eat food or something
Oh
like that.
no!
And she's like, and I put on Cindy's birthday party, not knowing it was a horror film,
Oh
and
god!
I and all you should have seen the kids' faces and how scared they were and how petrified they were and all these things. It was like, and she was like, you should be ashamed of yourself. Like, I can't believe they even put things like this on YouTube and all this stuff. And I'm telling you, I laughed my ass off. Like,
I'm over here laughing my ass off as
I
it
was
is right now.
so happy to get that email because, first of all, Cheryl. Like this movie is clearly labeled as a horror film.
Right.
Not necessarily with the title, but the first 10 seconds you even put the film on, it's got horror font, it's got creepy music,
Yeah.
it's got a very unsettling tone right away, and it's published by Strange Films. What are you expecting? Like what are you talking about? And also, Cheryl, why are you putting on YouTube videos without watching them first in a class?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you leaving them unattended and walking out too? Man, it was crazy. But I tell you, I posted that email on Reddit and the film blew up. Like, got
Oh
like
yeah.
3,000 more views and stuff. It was great. So
Yeah.
she gave me the best publicity for that film, which is so funny to me. But to answer your question, that film was a very special project of us at the time. And right after it, because it was doing well, we got picked up in a lot of festivals. We went out to LA with it and everything too. And me, my dad, and my producer Dan at the time, who helped produce that film, we were sitting there at Long Beach, California, and we were just like, I was like, "Hey guys, I want to make a comic book because right before that trip, I had this conversation with my brother, and I was like, we should make comic books out of our films. I mean, our films are kind of like, inspired by Marvel and like world building universes. We should just make comic books out of them. That's what Marvel does. With comics and movies and comics. Like we should just do that with Strange Films." And he was like, "Yeah, Strange Comics." I was like, "Yeah, it's perfect." So I was like, "I want to make a comic book, and I think the perfect thing to do it with it would be Cindy's birthday party. Just make an adaptation of Cindy's birthday party into a comic so we can tap into the comic book genre and comic book audiences." So the adaptation is not like continuing the story; it's a straight up adaptation
Oh,
of the movie. So it
gotcha.
follows from the very beginning of the movie to the very end, and it's 10 pages. I at the time, So my artist Tim Spavero, he's a great friend of mine. He does the logos for me on Strange Films, and he does all my comic books. By the time I did a Kickstarter for the comic, got overfunded in like 6 days, and we ended up like doing the whole thing. We partnered up with a comic book shop at the time and made a variant cover, and we got it published, and I printed them all out. I sold out all of the comics at the comic book shop and everything. So it was a really really awesome experience. Did the so we printed out, we made that comic, we adapted Cindy's Birthday Party, and then that kind of inspired me to adapt more films into comic books. So I did an adaptation of our film Passenger, and then I did an adaptation of our film Pandora, but that one was kind of like, I'm just going to take the concept of Pandora and make it very more like fantasy adventure, and it's not really the film; it's just kind of the concept of Pandora. But
Gotcha.
that's kind of how it all started. It's not an extension; it's just an adaptation. But it was great because we got to really, get comic book viewers into our world, which is cool.
Yeah. That particular short reminded me a lot. You're probably too young for this, but Mark might remember. There was a TV show when I was probably around Cindy's age in the film called Monsters that my mom used to let me stay up and watch at night, and it was short little horror related stuff like that, and that reminded me a lot of something you'd see on that show.
Oh, cool! Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's a people. It's a hit or miss for people, and I think it's just because of sensitivity with kids now these days. But it's like our stuff is inspired by like stuff like what you just referred to, like old like 80s and 90s like horror anthology kind of stuff, like Creep
Yep.
Show or Tales from the Crypt or something. Just like it's supposed to be like one shot kind of bizarre scenarios and getting monsters involved or and not afraid to pull kids involved or whatever. I mean, it's straight up like from the 80s, I feel like. And people are people get sensitive about that kind of stuff now, and it's just interesting. But I really that film was great, and it was such a family affair because everyone involved in that movie um, had their parent there, like
Right.
and part of the film, like Cindy, uh, the girl who played Cindy, her mom played the monster, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, and like Jonas, who played the boy who gets eaten by the monster, his dad played the chauffeur and produced the movie, and
How
like
hard was it to get him to sit still for that makeup, though?
that, well, the kids were kind of getting a little tired at this point,
Right.
like that was the end of the end of the day. We were shooting probably 8 hours at that day, and he was getting a little tired and I think a little cranky or whatnot. And I think it was kind of like we kind of had to like keep him going at that point. But
Yeah.
I mean, for being 6 years old, I think at the time, I
Yeah.
mean, God, he was a champ. I mean,
He
he
did. He did
he
a
took
great
it on.
job.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
took it
He
on.
did
He
a
was
great.
like, yeah, okay. Like his dad was really great with him and whatnot. So he was like a little cranky at that part. But once he got it on and once we did it was all good. But it was yeah, I mean, working with kids is one thing, but doing it for 8 hours with them, and they're kind of like understand what's going on, but maybe not really fully understand. That's
Right.
kind of the communication you kind of have to kind of go through with those moments.
So I'm going to move on to my favorite so far from what I've seen so far,
Sure.
because this reminded me a lot. So we'll go back a little bit. So Mark loves my stories about my mother, but
Oh, hang on, hang on. Okay, you have to give a little bit of context about that, Jim. That sounds
no, 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 no. That's already been published. It's out there for the world to know, sir. We're good. So my mom, when I was younger, our quality time or our bonding time would be watching horror movies and stuff. So she would come down. We'd watch like Tales from the Dark Side, Twilight Zone, Tales from the Crypt, that kind of stuff.
hmm
the entity.
The Entity, yes.
Which,
But
again,
luckily, August is young enough. He probably doesn't even know what that movie is,
I
Mark. So
don't actually know.
it's about a poltergeist raping a woman from like
Oh God!
now,
yeah,
and full graphic nudity and everything else.
yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
and Mark thinks that I'm mentally fucked because I watched that movie when I was like
Oh no, no, no,
11 or
not
12.
just because of that.
No, okay. Well, good to know. So anyway, the subject
Oh,
that
subject the
yeah,
movie.
subject is probably the my favorite short that I've seen of yours so far.
Oh, okay, cool. That's a
I I thought that was great. It was very reminiscent of an old Twilight Zone movie, and I thought
thank
it
you,
was fantastic.
thank you. Yeah,
Mark,
that's
did
kind
you
of like a
see it?
deep cut. That one really doesn't get talked about a lot.
But it's got such a great feel, and I don't know. It's very minimalist because a lot
Yes.
of it takes place in one room
Hmm.
where the guy is being held captive.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So I'll give you a little story on that. So Subject was, I personally love Subject. I think it's an underrated film. I think we did a really great job with that. But so kind of how it came to be was I entered this competition for a local film festival called the 2 Week Twister, and it
okay,
was we had 2 weeks, just kind of like your 48 hour. You had 2 weeks to write, shoot, edit, produce, and excuse me, make a movie. So and we had to have like certain elements and dialogue and all these things to go with it. So we drew like having the line like "Do I amuse you?" We had to use tinfoil in it. We had to use like puzzle pieces, and we had to use something else.
oh, that makes so
But
much sense now.
yeah, so certain like three elements in a line of dialogue, and it had to be under 10 minutes, and all these crazy restrictions. So start the fest. I'm like, all right, what do we do? So I had a script written. Um, it was completely different than what that movie was. I can't remember at the time what it was, but it was a lot more ambitious. I had the script written, and it just didn't seem practical. It didn't seem logical, and no one really was able to do it or anything like that. So I scrapped it. So I got with my brother who plays Tyler McKee, who plays the subject guy.
Okay.
I got with him and I go, dude, I gotta make a movie. I have like 8 days left. It's like, so, uh, can we just like get in your apartment and film stuff? He's like, yeah, sure. So, because he's been in a lot of my films. So we get in his apartment, and I was like, well, I just watched like movies like Suspiria and stuff, and I was like, I want to do like cool lighting and everything. So like, let's have this concept of like this guy like in his apartment, and he like is, you know, he tries every time he tries to do something, he gets trapped or something like something bad happens, and he has to start his day over, like kind of like a Groundhog Day effect.
Right.
And I was like, let's just do something like that. So blue light means good, red light means bad,
Right.
and like he has to eat certain shit food, and he has to do certain things, and he has to stay in like one room,
Right.
and then, so yeah, like we essentially got in his apartment. We hung up some like I went to the Dollar Tree and grabbed a bunch of different supplies, and some really bad, just the most disgusting food I could find. And I just grabbed all this stuff. I spent like $10, and I went back to his place, and we strung up all this like Saran wrap, and strung up these lights and all this stuff,
That
and
that
I
is
was
the
like, all
most
right.
that is the most unnerving sound when he runs his hand over that saran wrap. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, yeah. And that
Oh.
was and I'm telling you, like all this was improv. There was no
Yeah.
script. There was
Wow.
no script. We were just like, okay, this is the setting. What do we do? So, I had him like we started off in his bed and with the alarm clock going off and him hitting it, kind of seeing what reactions he would do from there. And then
Right.
we would like go in the living I would follow him into the living room and kind of see what he did. And like all those takes were all like improv, like him like
Oh
hitting
wow.
the thing, and then I was like, okay, yeah, let's do that. But once you hit it, we'll turn on the red light like you're doing something bad, and that makes you like. And we had a fog machine, so we're like, and we'll like, we'll knock you out. That way, it start the
Gas
day
him.
over. So like that, all that stuff. Just like we probably spent like 4 or 5 hours just shooting like all those little things that you saw in the film,
Right.
and then what happened was, from that idea stemmed, okay, why is this all happening? Well, because aliens are controlling him, which
Right.
is such a left turn strange films kind of go.
Yep.
And luckily my buddy Eric Jackson, who did makeup for my film Passenger, and he ended up doing makeup for the Lion's Den later on, he was available, he was ready to go, he loves working with me. And I was like, okay, I've got like 3 days left for this thing, are you available on Saturday or Friday to get in and do this little scene where it looks like these aliens are controlling this guy, because we already shot all the apartment stuff at this point. And he was like, yeah, absolutely. So we went in there, we shot it, and that whole thing with Austin Polly, who did the alien at the end, that was all improvised too. There was no script ever for
Oh
this
wow.
entire film. There was no script. He just right off the top of his head and kind of doing those little movements with the girls with the aliens. That was all just kind of like, oh, let's just this is what we're gonna do. And I brought my laptop with the footage I already edited with with my brother, and
Right.
I kind of had that clip playing on the laptop so they can watch and stuff. And
Right.
that's just kind of how it started. That's kind of how it happened. I kept it very minimal. There was no music in it at
Yeah.
all, except until the very end with the credits,
Right.
and we ended up winning best editing for that film, but we got nominated for like all the other awards. And then I'll never forget, like after we won best editing, and I got done with the festival. One of the judges came up to me. She's like, you should have won best film for this
Wow.
competition. She's like, I loved your movie so much. And I was like, oh, thank you. I mean, just because for me it was such a you know like off the cuff kind of production. I'm
Hmm.
surprised how well it came out. And
Yeah.
and when I hear people who actually really enjoy the movie, that makes me happy because working with my brother especially is like one of the best things. So it's a fun film for me to watch.
Yeah. And I do have to say shout out to the makeup because the beauty, the airbrushing and stuff on the aliens at the end was beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. Eric is amazing. I think he worked on The Walking Dead at one point. Like
Oh
he's an
wow.
amazing artist, makeup artist. So he's just if you haven't watched Passenger or Lion's Den, just check those films out and you'll see even crazier practical effects.
Oh, I definitely will. I definitely will. I didn't have a whole lot of time to finish, stalking your YouTube channel, but I'll get
Yeah,
there.
there we go.
Mark, back to you, sir.
Yeah. Jim did way more research than I did because my life has been a horror movie for about the last month and a half, and I have
Uh
no
oh.
idea. Oh, you know all about it.
Yeah.
August, going forward, what are your future plans, aspirations, projects, etc.? What do you want to promote, and who do you want to promote, and what else do you want to talk about?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys having me on again. I think this year is probably going to be a lot of growth as far as content goes, and that goes way outside of the films.
Mm.
I'm trying to do like different series and different like kinds of content where I'm trying to actually help new filmmakers, aspiring filmmakers, and amateur filmmakers who are trying to figure out like why and how to be a filmmaker, so like I'm doing a whole series of videos where I'm like breaking down every part of filmmaking and the process of it and why you should do this, or resources they can use to help them in their journey and stuff like that. So I'm doing like I'm trying to bring a lot of value to the film community in general, and outside of that, you know me doing like tutorial kind of stuff or talking about these things, like I want to support other filmmakers as well. So we have a film festival we're trying to do this year, probably a virtual one just to kind of start and kind of get our name out there a little bit more, and kind of hopefully bring in filmmakers who are supporting not only the festival but like Strange Films, and then eventually the goal would be to do a physical in-person festival the next time around. But just doing stuff like that, interviewing. I do a podcast, the Strange Films podcast, and we interview. Excuse me. We interview filmmakers and actors and other creators, and we get to talk about their careers and their experience and life and all these different things about it. So that's all kind of like my what I can bring to the film community just as much as I've gotten out of the film community. Um, but when it comes to like making films, I will say He Comes to Kill really inspired me to be able to make longer films. So I'm really trying to do like longer films and hopefully get to that 90-minute mark as far as a feature film goes. So I have about 3 different films in mind that I'm trying to work on right now. But I kind of need to take a step back, and I want to do a couple shorts beforehand because they're good practice, and I kind of just want to film something in general. I want to do a found footage horror film, so that's kind of one of my next things I want to do. I've got a web series I'm really trying to work on with my brother. Um, he Comes to Kill Part Two. That's the biggest horror film I probably want to work on as well this year. So stuff like that, and then yeah, I mean, just kind of really push content on YouTube and my socials, and we really push on Strange Film Studios on YouTube, Strange Film Studios on Instagram. We're on TikTok. Actually, my name August Aguilar on TikTok, and but strangefilmstudios.com is really where you can find a collection. All of our work, everything that we've ever done is on there. But yeah, I just really try to invite people to collaborate with us and to kind of give us a shot because I think we have a lot to offer as far as value goes, and hopefully can tell more stories and even cooler characters.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know that myself and Jim go to a horror convention. We're both in Florida. Have you ever put any of your shorts or anything into, they do like short film competitions to any of those sort of conventions or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, like we submit to conventions and festivals all the time, all over the country. I mean, I've been to some of my films have been to Florida. Like, I think the last one was like I don't know if it was called Phantasm or something like that.
Oh
There's like
yeah,
a horror.
that's a
Yeah,
newer one that just started in
yeah,
Orlando. We went to the last 2 years. Yep.
yeah. It was a newer one. I think we had Happy Mother's Day play there. I can't, but we had a film play there. You know, we've got. I think we're playing our film "He Comes to Kill" at our local convention here, Bride of FrankenCon, this summer. I've been submitting that film to just the festivals in general across the country and whatnot. So really, anytime I can find a convention or a festival that I feel like we're a good fit and that I can actually submit or apply to or submit to, then I definitely go for it. It just kind of depends. You never These festivals are all it's all about the money, up front, and then you never know what you're going to get out of that as well. So but it could not. It's not guaranteed. Is what I'm trying to say. Like of getting in or not. So, but yeah, we're always trying to push. But really, I think just to help myself and my own sanity, I'm just trying to push online as much as I can, just in case I don't get into those conventions or festivals.
Jim,
Yes, sir.
any other questions?
No, I think he's covered everything I wanted to talk about.
Okay. So August, towards the end of our podcast, what we do is a quick what we've watched over the last week or two. So if you want to hang around and listen to what we've watched, and you can tell us what you've watched, if anything.
So, August, do you want to tell us some of what you have watched?
Sure. So the biggest thing, and I've been actually talking about this a lot on social media, on my podcast, and everything as well. But I mean, man, I love it so much. I actually want to rewatch it again. Is The Menu? It's so good. I love how like dark it is, and
Yep.
how much of like a kind of like a little bit like that comedy vibe in it as well. Like it's just like a dark comedy in a way,
Yep.
but it's more like disturbing in a sense outside that. But I mean, the acting was phenomenal. The story. I worked in restaurants for years, so that kind of really hit home for me as well in that sense.
Hmm.
But yeah, I love The Menu. I can't get enough of it. I've been recommending it to everyone I know.
That is a fantastic film. We talked about that, I think, a week or two ago when I first got a chance to see it, and we both agree it was fantastic.
It's like if Gordon Ramsay went insane and had a
Yep.
cult.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I thought that was great. Uh I'm trying to catch up on a lot of the movies I haven't watched in 2022. Like, so I know like the next one I want to watch, like, because I finally have access to it, is Everything Everywhere All at Once. Um,
Fantastic film. You will not be sorry.
I know everyone keeps saying that to me, so like, I just gotta get the time to like sit down and actually watch it. So
Yeah.
hopefully one of these next nights I've got it free. But yeah, I'm that's the movie I've been wanting to watch. I guess really new movie wise, maybe The Menu was the only thing I actually ended up watching. I don't get as much time as I'd like to watch new movies, unfortunately, with the kiddo and staying busy and stuff.
That's fair. That is
But
fair.
I'm definitely always up for recommendations. So if you guys got some stuff that you just recently watched, I'd love to know
Oh,
so I can check out and put on the list.
so Mark, one thing you might not know about August, and I know because I was like cyber stalking him doing research for this thing, is
Yes. Yes.
his favorite genre would be horror comedy.
Yes. You've been watching those TikToks or whatever.
Yeah, I have.
So, Jim, do you have something to say about that?
No, I really don't, because honestly, I've not watched. Well, I will say I did watch Megan
Oh yeah,
the
did
last
you
week.
like that?
It was a lot better than I was expecting it to be.
Cool.
It was a fun watch. It really was.
Good, good. Yeah, I want to check that one out too. I'm a big fan of Blumhouse films in general. So.
Yeah. What about you, Mark? Any recent things you've seen that you want to recommend?
So I started watching The Last of Us,
Oh yeah, I did watch Last of Us. Yeah, that's great. It's been
and
awesome.
have you played the game?
Oh yeah, I played part one. I
Yeah.
haven't played part two, but holy shit, man! It's
Oh,
uh, I mean, so I'm assuming if you've played the game, then like it's just like
yeah.
the way they've shot this series so far. It's just been like right, hand in hand. I felt like it's so good.
And
Yeah, the
I think,
recreation of some of the scenes was fantastic, I think.
Yeah,
and I think some of the changes that they made sense.
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
For the format that it's in, and I think it's going to start kicking on soon. I think as you played the games, you kind of already know kind of going through, even though it's awesome. But
Hmm.
I'm waiting for it to really start kicking off soon because I think they're just
Yeah.
introducing, hey, here are here are the bad guys and here are the this the different monsters. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think the acting's phenomenal. I think the
Hmm.
direction is great. I think the use of CGI is fantastic with the backgrounds.
Yes.
Yes.
Again, it's just out of the movie with the skyscraper, on top of the other one.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
I will say, The Last of Us Part Two, the game,
Hmm.
is probably my favorite game.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It will pull you emotionally, like no other game.
I don't need
Yeah,
that shit in
I
my life.
haven't played it yet. I'm excited to play it, and I just saw that Last of Us got renewed for season 2, and they said that it's going to reflect part 2 of the
Yeah,
game. So um, that's I gotta try to play that before it comes out.
Yeah.
yeah. A lot of people won't be happy, which is a good thing sometimes. Jim, back to you. Do you have another one?
um, the so unless you're an audiobook fan, I really don't have any more comedies. I watched Lockwood and Co, which is a new Netflix series, and
Okay.
it's an English based series about teenage ghost hunters. And once you turn 18, you can no longer see or sense ghosts.
Hmm.
So our only line of defense are kids from 13 to 18. It was it didn't land well for me, so
Hmm.
I didn't particularly care for it.
I
Um,
feel I feel that would be more interesting if it was just like dogs.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did watch Teen Wolf the movie, which is new on Paramount Plus, because
Okay.
Ray was obsessed with the TV show when it was on MTV, and it was good fan service. It wasn't great. Um, I watched a new show called The Wolf Pack, also on Paramount Plus, which stars Sarah Michelle Gellar, which is the only reason I watched. I saw the first episode. I have to give it at least two more before I say I hate it.
Hmm.
But so far, I'm not hooked.
Okay.
I
Outside of
oh yeah, actually there is one comedy you might like if you have access to Hulu.
sure. Yeah.
Um, it's Extraordinary.
Extraordinary.
It's an
Okay.
Eng- I have been really enjoying British comedies lately for some reason, and I don't know why. But this is essentially everybody in the world gets a superpower except one girl, and it's all about her life and how much it sucks because she has no powers.
Huh.
And
Okay.
but it's done really well. And it's typical dry British humor, and I just think it's great.
I'll have to look into that one.
Uh,
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
if
Outside of horror, I started watching that '90s show. I don't know if you guys are that
I
'70s show
saw a couple
fans.
episodes, again, I'm not hooked, but probably because I grew up in the '80s, so I like that '70s show
Sure.
more.
Sure. Yeah. I
But
thought it
it's
was
not
pretty good so
terrible.
far. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was having some laughs in there. I like it.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I don't disagree. I did watch a Netflix series called The Puppet Master: Hunting a Con Man. That was blew me out of the blew my mind because the guy's on the loose and did it to more women after he got out of jail the first time.
That's a true crime doc.
It is.
Oh yeah, I love that.
It
Okay.
is, and I was quite surprised that he's still out and about, and his latest
Oh
victim is
no.
still with him.
Wow.
Uh, I also started watching The Mayfair, which is on AMC Plus. That
Okay.
is based on an Anne Rice book of the same name, and so far it's done really well. It's dark, it's brooding, and it's just shot phenomenally. It's a visually a beautiful show, and I'm really enjoying that one. That it surprised me a lot.
Is it vampires, Jim?
It is not. It's witches. It's called The Mayfair Witches.
Oh,
Yeah, no
is there
vampires.
vampires in it?
No, not yet.
Good,
It's just witches.
just
You know,
witches.
like the Mayfair witches. So it basically takes place in the South, and it revolves around this family called the Mayfairs.
Hmm.
As if that wasn't obvious. That's about all I know so far. It's this girl's search for her birth family because she believes she was adopted. Turns out she wasn't. Her aunt spirited her away from her mother and has been drugging her mother to keep her from using witchcraft. And it's really well done. It's got Alexandra Daddario
Yeah,
from the Baywatch movie. And normally I call so this is going to sound terrible, but she's got these giant eyes and they're always dilated, so she always looks so intense. So I call her Crazy Eyes because she just looks like she could just freak out at any moment. But she's doing so well in this drama and being vulnerable that it really surprised me.
Wow. Hmm.
I'm not sure, Mark. You'll have to refresh my memory, and you may not even remember. I watched this movie called Hypochondriac, and I'm not sure if I talked about it yet or not.
I don't think so.
So it's one of the only LGBTQ prominent horror films that I've seen, especially recently. And I gotta say, it was not at all what I was expecting from the trailer, but I didn't hate it, which is
Yeah,
good for me because
sounds
normally I hate them.
fantastic for most people. Yeah,
Yeah,
Jim
but
didn't hate it.
yeah, it was a good drama, but it instead of being a horror film, it was more about mental illness and not so much about horror.
Mm.
So it was a bit of a bait and switch for me. So I was a little surprised. And then we move
That's
on to my audiobooks. I'm sorry. Did you have a question, August?
Well, no, I was just saying that's the cool thing about films, because there's it just feels like there's always like a new idea or new twist or spin
Yeah.
on it, and that's what I love about making movies. You can always, even if like you're taking heavy inspiration from one idea, you can make it into your own, which is always
Right.
cool.
Yeah, and I do agree. Like I said, I didn't hate it. I probably am going to have to watch it again to fully appreciate all of its messages and the tone and everything, because I was a little jarred by what I was expecting versus what I actually got. But I did not hate the movie.
So, Jim, before you jump into your audiobooks, I'll
Uh
go
huh.
over what I watched.
Sure.
Okay, so unfortunately, I watched a couple of clunkers this week. I watched The Mutations, Jim. Have you heard of this?
Mutations? No.
It's a 1974 movie with Donald Pleasance and Tom Baker in it,
Oh.
about Donald Pleasance trying to make um, plant human hybrids. And there's also a freak show involved.
Oh.
This, although it was 1974, it felt like a 1964 movie. This was slow, boring. They had an extended piece where they have the freak show, and they're all being like brought out one by one on stage, which just felt like now it's just so cringe. They copied the ending of Freaks, Todd Browning's Freaks,
Okay.
but this was slow. Donald Pleasance couldn't save it. It was just awful.
It had to have been if he couldn't save it.
So just skip that one. And I thought that was going to be the worst movie I watched all week. But just randomly, I put on a found footage movie from 2012 called Amber Alert.
Okay. Never heard of it.
So this is a movie about three people who are, they're making a video to send in to audition for like a reality show.
Okay.
But as they're, they make like 5 minutes at the start where they're talking about themselves and da 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 da. They're in the car driving and they see, one of the signs up saying Amber Alert, look out for this type of car, and this is a license plate. So they see the car. Okay, that's interesting enough. Let's see where it goes. An hour later, and it's just like the two leads have just been screeching at each other in this car for that length of time, and it's like, oh my god, like this is so much filling and it's so much padding, and nobody's doing anything, and it's making my head hurt. Like, stop
Okay.
screeching at each other, and they make so many bad decisions and stupid decisions. I'm like, oh my god. And you know me, Jim. I try to find the positives out of movies,
Yeah,
especially.
you're much easier on movies than I am. So this is
This one actively annoyed me, and
huh.
the reason why I kind of kept up with it, it was rated 18 plus on Amazon, so I'm like, oh, maybe it's like Megan is Missing or something, where the majority of that movie was kind of annoying, but like
Right.
the end was pretty disturbing.
Okay.
But this one, it was just like the stupid people doing stupid things. They like I'll spoil it because nobody should watch this anyway. they eventually find the house where this guy has kidnapped this little girl, and they're going through the house, and there's like loaded guns there, and they pick it up, and like the guy is like, "Oh my god, this guy's got guns!" And they put the guns back down, and they start walking through this house. I'm like, "What the fuck are you doing? Gun? You're in this guy's house. Obviously, and they do like the Silence of the Lambs ending where they're filming, and then it's just he's shooting them, right?
Right.
Okay, big wow. It was such a colossal waste of time. So let's move on from that.
Okay.
I watched the 2001 killer elevator movie Down
Eh.
with Naomi Watts.
Yeah.
So this was a movie by Dick Mass.
Uh-huh.
Jim, are you familiar with Dick Mass
No.
or the director?
No. 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 Either one I'm not familiar with. Sorry.
Yeah, this was fun, goofy stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
it's funny because it does take itself seriously, but then it doesn't.
Right.
I mean, it's perfectly fine for a 90-minute movie. I guess it's a remake of his original
Yeah.
Dutch movie.
Yeah.
It's totally fine. I watched Pennywise, the story of it.
I said I want to watch a documentary about the making of that movie. Like, so first I have a question. Is it about the clown itself, or is it about the book or the 90s movie or the remake?
No, it's all about the making of the 90s TV series.
Oh, then I definitely want to watch it. Okay.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing surprising or outlandish in it. It's a passable hour and a half with some to bring back the cast, etc. So that's pretty good. The two other things that I watched real quick were on Netflix, both documentaries. The
Okay.
first one was called Eat the Rich, the GameStop story, I think it was called.
Okay.
All about, I don't know if you remember this or if
The
you
short
were
sales.
aware of it. The short selling.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about how like internet changes things and this generation's different.
Right.
I mean, that all came from a subreddit group who
Yep.
decided to start buying GameStop. And basically, these hedge funds are just, these are the worst sort of people who are actively just wanting to, look at companies that fail and wish that they fail
Yep.
to make money. Jim, do you want to tell everybody about short sale?
No, I do not want to discuss finances. Thank you.
But basically, what short selling is, in a nutshell, means that um, say you buy a stock at $10, right?
Mm-hmm.
The most you could lose is $10. If you short sell it, you buy it at $10. If that stock goes up to $500, you owe $490, right? So you can lose so much more money. And it's just so funny that, I think one of the hedge funds went out of business or something, but, the banks backed them and, Robinhood trading stopped trading it and all this sort of crap. But it was an interesting one. The other one was very quirky documentary, which I love, called The Pez Outlaw.
I saw that one, but I did not get a chance to put it on.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. This guy, he's just like a regular dude, middle America, has some maybe mental issues, but he's just working a dead end machinist job. He one day gets an idea about cereal boxes, right? And if you collect enough of the coupons on it, you get free stuff.
Right.
So he would go and search out for all of these boxes and send it in. He would get like hundreds and hundreds of these free things, which he would end up selling. Then he found out about Pez. People were collecting Pez, and somebody told him, "Hey, if you go to Europe to one of the factories over there, you can get stuff that's not released in the U.S." And this is like mid '80s, I think.
Right.
So you can go over there and you can buy a whole bunch of stuff over there, come back to the U.S. and sell it at a huge profit to all these collectors.
Right.
But it was just super interesting. It's a big recommend.
Okay.
That's it for me.
So I have three audiobooks, but two of them get lumped together because it's a series. We'll start with Armageddon the musical. The first
Audio
book, yeah, it's Armageddon the musical.
audiobook.
So yeah, it's an audiobook. It's a very dry British humor. I guess sci-fi would be the best way to describe it because it's much like The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where they have all these random characters that just do all this random shit, and at some point Elvis has to travel through time with a sprout that is magic that can bring him through time in order to save the world. Um, the first book didn't really hook me too much because you can tell it's written by an English author, obviously trying to write American characters that still use British euphemisms. So it kind
Yeah,
of was a little jarring. But
right.
then I did Armageddon the Musical 2, tagline They Came and Ate Us. And it was phenomenal. It was funny. I was laughing out loud again. And I don't know if it's just that I got used to the style or if it actually improved. But they're both written by Robert Rankin and they're fantastic. And then I just started the Prof Crop series. I bought the Audible books 5 through 8 by Brad Magnarella. It's essentially about an urban wizard that is lives in New York City. It's a lot like the Dresden Files, where he investigates with the cops and tracks down all these different supernatural creatures. And it's just a fun series. The best character in the whole series, though, is Tabitha the cat. She's a succubus trapped in the body of a cat, and she's just a fat, lazy house cat, and she's great.
But
And that's
it's
it for me.
but hang on, it's a succubus.
Succubus trapped in a cat.
So is the cat trying to hunt people?
No, no, it's just a fat, lazy house cat. Just happens to have
So,
a succubus trapped in its body.
so what's the point in it being a succubus?
She's just a catty house cat. There is
It's
nothing.
like it's like if it was a vampire cat, but it didn't suck blood.
Pretty much, yeah. It's just there
But
to
it's just a
mostly
fat.
for snarky comic relief.
Why are they always named Tabitha?
I don't know, but she's a great character, and then the narrator's awesome. So it's definitely one that I recommend if you're into audiobooks. And that's it for me. So August, thank you for sticking around with us. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you guys have a lot to go over.
We
That's
do.
great.
Well, this is not normal for me. Usually my list is 2 or 3 things at most. So
Yeah, gotcha.
this was I've been on vacation this week, so
Oh, okay,
I had a
cool.
lot more free time.
Gotcha.
So August, why don't you remind everybody where they can find you?
Sure, of course. Yeah, you can find us at strangefilmstudios.com. If you look up Strange Film Studios on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, we're at Strange Films Pod on Twitter. We do have the Strange Films Podcast. It's on Apple and Spotify. So yeah, Strange Film Studios, give it a goog. I'm sure you'll be able to find it anywhere. But yeah, my name is August Aguilar. I'm attached to all that stuff. So anywhere you find Strange Films, I'm sure I'm tagged on there and you can find me as well.
Oh yeah, you Google yourself and you're everywhere.
Yeah,
I-
I actually ended up Googled myself not too long ago and I was like, holy.
yeah, I didn't expect it to be so easy to find you when I Googled you, to be honest.
Yeah.
Jim
Yeah.
does a lot of this, by the way,
A lot of what?
looking for people on the internet.
Well, only when I have free time to do research, Mark. I'm not
Oh, yeah,
really
yeah.
a cyber stalker.
Quote unquote research.
Research.
Quote unquote research.
Yeah, I'm
But
just waiting to get the Wikipedia page. That's my thing. That's my next
well, you
goal.
can write that yourself, right?
Yeah, but I want someone else to make it for me. I want it to be like, oh, I'm on Wikipedia, not me.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
We'll probably have one up by tonight.
Yeah, probably
right.
not. Not tonight. Not tonight. I have too many cups to make right now. But anyway, August, thank you so much for all your time today. I really appreciate it, and please keep us in mind if you ever want to come on or have a project you want to pop. Please feel free to reach out anytime.
For sure, I will, and I appreciate you guys. Thanks for all the support. Thanks for all the encouragement and everything. Definitely stay connected and feel free to reach out if I can help out in any way as well. So thank you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.